Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Redemption and Recovery When Suppressed Wounds Begin to Heal. I am your host, Christina Jones, and I have a wonderful guest today, Mr. Terraine. So, without further ado, go ahead and introduce yourself, sir.
Thank you very much, Christina. Hello, everyone. My name is Terraine. I am a relationship coach and I help people deal with the different types of relationships, which a lot of times does include recovery, redemption, and everything in between. So, thank you very much for having me today.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Welcome here. So, I see behind you, is that Behind the Shades?
Yes, that's the name of my podcast, the Behind the Shades show. But Behind the Shades is what we go by here. And yeah, that's peeking behind and finding out more about people. So, let's go behind the shades with everyone.
I love that. I love that. And it says a view, I
A
think.
view towards a better tomorrow.
Okay, I love that. And then, like, so you're kind of like a relationship coach?
Yeah, so not relationship in the sense that I'm gonna help everyone get married.
Okay.
I'm getting there, right? But just relationships more so. Let's say a relationship with yourself,
Okay.
relationship at job, with your friends, with your family. So relationships overall, I think there's more than enough, and definitely a lot of people who are probably more um insightful than I am when it comes to finding marriages. But I also tiptoe a little bit in that market in that pool as well.
Okay. Okay. So what made you want to do something as such? Like was there something like something that happened in your life that kind of pushed you to that calling or
Oh, absolutely. I just couldn't make it work with women. That's basically what it was. I'm in my 30s now. In my 20s, like I couldn't. McDonald's was my restaurant when it came to dates, right? So,
Okay.
yeah. To share a story, I remember there's a time way back in the day that when I used to go on dates, I used to bring $20. And the reason why I brought $20 was all my dates were on Tuesdays. So here in Canada, we have something called Toonie Tuesday. So Toonie is $2. So the bus ride is $2, the dinner is $2, and the movie is $2. So I used to go on dates for 12 whole dollars back in
Okay.
the day. So you can just imagine the type of person that I was, and more so the type of person, the women I was dating. So one of the reasons I got into this is just to maybe guide people in a way to help them make better choices, not only for themselves, but for the people that they want to get with. Because Lord knows I could have definitely used the guidance in my 20s.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now, did you come from a two-parent household where your parents were married or
Yeah, so my parents eventually got married, but growing up, I didn't know my parents. So I didn't meet my parents until I was about 5 or 6. And one of my first memories of them was actually at their wedding. I was a ring bearer. So I don't have many memories of my parents. So I kind of grew up with my grandmother, and she was my mother, my father, and my superhero growing up. So my outlook was a little bit different than I guess a lot of people.
okay. Okay. Hmm. Because I'm just trying to think about like even other factors that kind of formulated your decision making about creating a platform as such. So, do you mind sharing more about your childhood?
Of course, I'm an open book. So for me, it was, what's interesting, Christina, is growing up, because I didn't go without, I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. But the first time I realized I was missing out was when my grandmother used to take me to like the parks. Like, a lot of kids go to the parks and they go on the swings and things like that.
Yeah.
I began to look around, and the person that I was with was so much older than the adults I were with their kids, right? So I began to wonder, I was like, okay, how come my parents, my guardian is so much older? And then once we had the conversation with my grandmother, that's when I began to realize, I don't have a mother. I don't have a father. This is someone else that is filling the role quite well, but it isn't the same, especially when you see the other children who they're interacting with someone that is like 20 years older versus me. I'm interacting with someone that's 35, 40, 45 years older. So that's when I first realized that there was a difference in my childhood compared to the childhood of others.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then you grew up in Canada, born and raised in Canada.
Born and raised, it's been an interesting journey in Canada. But yeah, definitely born and raised. I grew up in one part of Canada which is more French speaking. So Quebec is a
Okay.
French speaking province. So I'm French Canadian by birth, and then When I ultimately came to another part, which Americans would call the state, I moved to Ontario, and that's where I got reunited with my parents. And the lifestyles were definitely different. I'll share that with you as well.
Okay, okay. And I know you've had some experiences where you have come over to the US. Would you ever consider relocating if you did find your good thing or your favor from the Lord? Would you relocate? Or have you found that person yet?
Yes, yeah. So it is on my list. So the last about 2 years,
Okay.
I had thoughts of like relocating to America, and I think that's why I spent so much time there. And I've just fallen in love with the cities that I've visited, not because I love Canada any less. It's just Canada now is my view of where I want to be in my life. Like I'm looking at the point where I want to retire early and just relax and enjoy life. And I think that the places that I've been in America allows for that more so where I am now. So, and then hopefully, you know what, maybe I'll end up getting married one day over there and live happily ever after with my 2.5 kids, dog named Sparky, and the white fence, right?
The American dream, right?
The American dream. Just because I don't live in America doesn't mean I don't know the American dream.
Yes. But you said something very interesting earlier about the $2, was it the $2 dates or the $12 dates? Now, I guess maybe I come from a different perspective, but I've been seeing a lot where these different women are putting on Facebook or social media about having a man who makes like all this money and how they want to be the table. Would you mind us talking a little bit about that?
Of course, of course. I work with women as a coach, so I've heard it all. I am the table terrain. Whatever that means to them. So yeah, we
Right.
can definitely have that conversation.
Yes. And like, see, my perspective is a little different. So my husband and I, we married in 2018. And
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. I say to God be the glory. But I've never been that type of female that's like a man he got to make like $1 million an hour, and he has to do this, and I'm gonna be this housewife, and I'm gonna do, I've never had that type of mindset because I've seen both of my parents work. I grew up in a house with my mom and my stepfather, and even my biological father. They always worked, and his wife worked, my mom worked. So I always seen it as, we're partners, we come together. And I don't see marriage as being it's 50-50, it's 100 or nothing. You know what I'm saying? So the women that you coach, through that, like what type of have do you sense that most of them are seeing the same thing, or are there some women who are like, I don't mind helping my man out, or
I guess it what to answer your question, yes, I do see it. I definitely do see it.
yeah.
Do I experience it as someone that when I used to date? Absolutely, I've experienced it, and I understand it. And this may be a controversial take, Christina, but
Okay.
I agree with women asking those
Okay.
prices, and here's why I agree with it. I believe that everyone should bring something to. I'm going to use the analogy, the table.
Okay.
And when it comes to from a male perspective, is that it is our responsibility to make the woman feel safe and secure, right? Now, that could be from a financial perspective, it could be from an emotional perspective, but that is our duty. Now, some people may say, Train, well, I don't believe in generals. That's perfectly fine. I'll put you to the side because I'll come back to you. Um, but when it comes to that, yes, I can see why. Now, I think it's gotten out of hand. Like, I don't think most people won't make six figures. Most people are average,
Yes.
meaning that most people are an average height, average income earners, average level of education, average in their appearance. So, for lack of a better word, most people are a 5 out of 10, at a 6 out of 10. And on a good day, some of those people who are average are a 7 out of 10. Ladies, don't hate me. That's just the way it is. Okay. So, once you start to look at yourself through that lens, then you can appreciate certain things that's saying that, okay, if I come to the table as a man now making 50,000 and the woman I date makes 45 to 50,000, combined we're at six figures. So we're better than most people together. What is missing is that some people don't want to be better together. They want you to be above average so you can elevate them. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want your man or your woman to elevate you in that sense, that means that you're going to have to elevate them in another way. And that's where people are missing. So when I see people who are married, such as yourself and many other people, they elevate each other. Whereas when I see these single people who talk about marriage in a way that if it happens, it happens, or if the universe allows it to manifest, meaning that they don't want to do any work, then they come to the point where they're saying that, okay, I need to find someone who's going to elevate me because I know that I'm in a position not to elevate the other person. So they're just there for the ride along. That's my observation.
Okay. Thank you for that observation. So because the only reason, see, so I'm gonna throw a curveball as well. And one of the things I like to encourage like single women, because even before I was married, I started doing the single women, single ladies in waiting type of a ministry where I'm just encouraging other women as I'm in my singleness trying to pursue a relationship to, well, my relationship that I was pursuing was just to get closer to God, um now, were there some hurdles along the way? Yes. Was I in some situationships that I probably shouldn't have been in? Yes. However, I learned from those situationships. But when I got married, um, it's like a lot of things shifted and changed because my husband, he was definitely making more money than I was because I had ended up relocating. I relocated from Florida, born and raised in Florida, relocated to Chicago because I believe the wife should follow her husband. I'm just traditional, you know. And I literally left everyone and everything behind. And I think that when you're with your ordained spouse, that comfortability, that just, it's like it just, everything just happens naturally, right? I came with him, moved in with him, and 2 years later, after we had became married, my husband became like sick, like almost near death. He had probably about 5 or 6 near death experiences, right? And he hasn't worked in the last 4 years. So when I'm encouraging women, I'm saying, okay, making sure that you're the woman, making sure that you're the person that you would like to marry. One, understanding the importance of having a job. You don't have to have a college education or anything like that, but being able to maintain a job and maintain finances. Extremely important. The other thing is, if something were to happen to your husband, like say if your husband loses his ability to speak, will you speak for that man? If he loses his ability to walk, will you walk for him? And the things that I've been seeing on social media is just, it's heartbreaking, because it's like they have this illusion as to what they believe marriage should be like. Or it seemed like some people are more so in lust with the idea of being married without really thinking about, okay, what if something happened to my husband? What do I do as this table, per se? So what is your take on that?
I will 100% agree. And I think social media, it does get a bad reputation, and I think it skews things quite a bit. So social
Yes.
media, in a lot of ways, have given people who, for all intents and purposes, wouldn't have a voice. And that voice is now have become a megaphone. So you have a very loud minority saying all these things about marriage. They want the social status of marriage, but they don't want the
Right.
social responsibility and accountability of marriage, which is why when it comes to the actual vows of marriage, the question should be, what vows are you going to take for sickness and in health, to death do us part? Do you mean these things when you say it, or are you just saying it to get the day over with because you look nice in your dress or you look nice in your tux?
Right.
Right? There's some people who honestly think that way. So what I try to, most of the women I work with, they're divorced, and a lot of them have
Okay.
had a bad divorce, right? So I ask them the question, what went wrong in the marriage, right?
Right.
For it to end. And I listen and I ask them, I was okay. So now what did you do for the marriage to end? Like, what do you mean? Like, what did you do?
Right.
I didn't do anything. I'm okay. So call up your ex-husband right now or your ex-wife. Let me talk to them. And I guarantee you they're going to give me a list of things that you did. Maybe you didn't
Right.
know what you did. Maybe you did, right? But it's interesting to see when a relationship ends that people don't see what they did wrong. They only see what the other person did wrong, right? It's like trying to remember my Bible teachings here. They can see the straw in other people's eyes, but they can't see it in themselves, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to social media, it amplifies a lot of times the negativity of relationships and it reduces the accountability. What I think needs to be done, and maybe you've gone through this since you're married and you made the move and you stood by your husband when he was going through what he was going through, is that for the single men and women out there, ask yourself this question.
Mhm.
The majority of the people that you are hanging around with, are they single with aspirations of being married and successful in life? Or are they comfortable being single? And the reason why I pose that question to a lot of people is what you'll find is a lot of people who are married successfully, they don't have time for people who are single serial daters. They've
Mhm.
elevated themselves to another level. So if you can answer that question, answer it truthfully, that's the first step to seeing what needs to be changed and where potentially you're going wrong.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I love that question. I really love that question. The other thing that I do, like when I do talk with singles or trying to encourage singles, is if they can to abstain from sex. Because when you become married, it's it's almost like you can start to compare, contrast, or if you can't practice self-control in your singleness, and that's not even just like sexually, it could be financially, it could be in other areas where you're not able to practice self-control. It's not like you're going to get married and all of that's going to just disappear and now you have all the control in the world. So like, what do you do in situations like that of coaching the women that you've been coaching?
Oh, same thing. Same thing.
Okay.
So I won't maybe give them a strict rules like no
Right.
sex, right? Be
Mm-hmm.
single and celibate.
Mm-hmm.
But I would tell the person if you're gonna go around saying you're single, that means you're not having sex. They asked me, Terraine, what does that mean? I was like, well, if you're gonna give your body to someone, why don't you want the emotional connection as well, the spiritual
Mm-hmm.
connection, the mental connection? There's this joke that well, it wasn't a joke to her, but it's a joke to everyone who was listening. So I
Okay.
asked this person, she said that she was divorced, right? And she said, Terrain, I've been divorced for 5 years. I was like, okay, perfect. Have you dated? She's like, no, I don't want to date. So I was like, perfect. So you haven't had sex in 5 years? She's like, no. She's like, oh, I had sex a month ago. I was like, oh, so you're willing to go halfway with all these different men, but you're not willing to go all the way. She's like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm like, but you're ready for sex,
Right.
right? So I turned it around on her and I said that if your daughter was doing what you were doing, how would that reflect on you as a parent? She's like, I would feel bad. She's like, I feel like I failed her in some way. I was like, exactly. You failed your mother. You failed your
Mm-hmm.
father, right? The same feeling. So when it comes to being single, I'm not saying don't have sex. Sex is a beautiful thing, especially when it's between two people who are loving, right? But understand why you're doing it. Are you doing it as an expression of love and intimacy with that person, or is it strictly lust?
Right.
Right. So that is the difference between the two. And I get the women that I work with and some men to understand the difference. Sex, when it's done right, leads to something more. If it's just going to be a transaction, then you need to reevaluate what you're doing and why.
Mm. Transaction. Yes. Now, see, I see a lot of things. Well, I mean, I just believe that everything is spiritual. We're all spiritual beings. And when you do connect with someone, you become one with that person. Now, I don't know if you were able to see anything about my background or anything like that, but I came from like starting off with like the molestation beginning at age 3, that entered into my life, then the sexual promiscuity. And then before I married my husband, I had been with a few guys before him. So I realized for myself, I had to almost like divorce every person that I slept with, right? However, now we know that physically they're going to always be a part of you. It's no, like, you can't take enough showers or enough baths to just wash these people off of you. There's going to always be some type of remnant that kind of continues, right? But I think just being able to, once you are with your ordained mate, I believe it's just everything again, that everything just happened naturally. Everything just flows. And I've said before that my husband is the first man that I've actually given myself to, because you can be with this person, that person, and no one has ever really seen you naked. There's this one pastor, his name is I think it's Pastor Michael Bryant, and he always uses the analogy of intimacy. What does intimacy really means? And he'll say intimacy means into me he sees. And in the Bible, when two people come together that was ordained to be together, um, the word will say that he knew her, versus he went into her. So it's like, I don't know if this is going behind the shades, because it's so much deeper than just that, oh, it's just a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, wham bam, thank you, sir. I'm gonna get mine, I'm gonna have an orgasm, then I just keep going. Because then you again, that remnant, and you're making a covenant with this person, a blood covenant, because even in biblical terms, it's when you're piercing the skin, that you're having sex, you're exchanging bodily fluid, you're entering and then you're entering this person's soul. So that's like, because people like, oh, you're just trying to be all extra godly, all extra, like, no, 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 no. Like, do you know my testimony? And for me to say my husband is the first man that I gave myself to, and I actually was able to be completely naked for, not just, literally, but figuratively, just in all aspects, right? And I'm just harping on this whole thing. It's like right now, like, even I guess maybe even back then, it was a lot of um, just a lot of people just freely just having sex, not even thinking about the consequences thereof, which is creating the soul tie, the diseases that's connected with it. And then it's like the generation is becoming even younger and younger. What is your take on that as well? I know I said a lot, but
No, like I grew up in the church as a young child, and
yeah.
I'll share that in my teens I used to give Bible readings. So I was pretty active in my congregation up until most of my teens and my early 20s. So I'm very well versed in the Bible. I've read the Bible cover to cover. I have a Bible at home. So I know its true meaning, and I know that it serves as a protection to the men and women that are part of the flock and for those who are looking to join it. So sex gets casual sex gets old really quick,
Right.
right? And some people don't see it. They're like, well, enjoy this and it's free, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but why are you doing it? And a lot of times when people are doing it, is they know deep down they can't hold a relationship. So what are they using? They're using the age old trick, which is sex. He comes over every Thursday night. Why? Because of sex,
Mm-hmm.
right? She calls me every Saturday evening. Why? Because of
Because of sex.
sex. But are they calling you because they actually want to spend time with you? Do they hang out with you at 12 noon, or is it always 12 a.m.?
Yeah.
You got to ask yourself these questions, right? Like, is
Mm-hmm.
this an after dark? This is an after hours relationship? Because what's the difference between your relationship and you going to the strip club? You're seeing
Right.
both people late at night,
Yeah.
right? Where no
Yeah.
one else can see you guys. You're not able to hold hands in public. You're not seeing the movies. You're not going to events,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like a secret. It's like you're dating the fat stepsister or the step
Mm.
cousin, right? Like you don't want to be seen with her, but there's something about her that just keeps you coming back for more, but no one can know, right?
Right.
So I think people need to understand that it will get old really, really quick. And once you will reach a certain age in your life. I think everyone will reach a certain age in their life where they have to make a decision. They're going to say, you know what? I don't want to do this, insert whatever the behavior is anymore. And since we're talking about casual sex, you come to the point where like, I want more. But
Right.
here's the problem. And this goes out to my men out there. If you have mismanaged your penis,
Mm,
you're going to have problems. You may come in contact, you're more open to diseases, you're more open to getting a girl pregnant, you're more open to all these other psychological impacts that you may not know of when you're going through it. So I want everyone to accept the responsibility of their actions because your past is your past. Yes, every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. But, and this is where some people don't like this answer, but you're going to have to grow up and understand you will be judged because of your past. Saying your past doesn't matter is immature because you ask the average guy out there, would you date a woman that you know has slept with 10,000 men? The majority will say no, right? Fair enough. Now, for the men's side, if a woman doesn't want to date you because you're known to be slinging whatever it is you're slinging up and down the street, it's the same thing. We may look at it as, well, you know what, Terraine? A key that unlocks all the doors is the best key in the world. But the lock that can be opened by many keys is the worst lock. Yes, I understand that analogy. But when
mhm.
it comes to people, you need to understand your past is always going to be a part of you. So every person you've laid down with will be a part of you, and people are going to look at you a certain type of way because of it.
This is true. This is true. And that's definitely something that, I love to encourage the men as well, to let them know that they're just as valuable. Their jewels are just as valuable. We need men just as much as we need women. And then the thing about men, I feel like, well, no, I believe that men are one of God's greatest creation, or God's greatest gift to the world, because without y'all, we wouldn't be here, without you all. And it's very important that we value who we are and we begin to love who we are, because when we don't know who we are or even know how to love ourselves, we go looking for love in all the wrong places. And then some of us can even develop a sexual addiction. So now it's like I can't even function without it, whether it be habitual masturbation, pornography, and different things as such. And I think some people who are part of the church per se may not like my approach to how I share things or how transparent I am about sex, but it's real. It's very much real because it's a part of us. And excuse the noise. It's a part of who we are. We're sexual beings. God created sex for us to for pleasure, release, and reproduction. So it's bound to happen. It's just my only gripe about certain congregations and is them not talking about it or just saying, well, you're just going to go straight to hell, and it's like, let's talk about it, let's have these open discussions, because sometimes if it is, we want to be in a relationship but all we know is sex, or because you've been violated, whether as a man or as a woman. Now you're trying to navigate, like, what is this whole relationship thing like relationally, I'm with this person, but I don't even know how to be in a relationship because I'm so used to people taking advantage of my body. Or, you know what I'm saying? So, have you had, I know you can't disclose certain things concerning your clients or the people that you work with, but have you had issues of such with people who have been like abused, even physically abused, and they're like afraid to take that next step and to get into a relationship, but they want to be in a relationship? Are you following me?
No, I am, and I do because I work
Okay.
with mostly with women, right? So one of the easiest ways for me to get them to be comfortable with the opposite sex is for me to hold myself to a certain standard so they're comfortable with, right? So
Right.
that's what I love about what I do is that the women that I work with, they've been mistreated by a man at some point in their life. And here they am being coached by a man. So I can be a representation of everything that is good in a man, right? So that's why it's important to me. And a lot of them have a religious background as well. So I do agree that when it comes to the abuse, you will see your abuser everywhere, right? Like you may see, okay, my abuser used to work in construction. So every time you see a construction worker, it may be triggered.
Right.
So it is kind of difficult for some people to maybe overcome that, but it's going to take time. And one of the first steps that I discuss with the women that I work with is learn to love yourself first before you ask someone else to love you. Because if you don't love what you're seeing in the mirror, then you can't expect someone else to love what they see as well.
I love that. Some more, Terraine. Please share some more because, like you
Oh,
said, that
I can keep going. I can keep
yes,
going.
please,
So
please, because I do have I've had conversations with different women who, they've been in these abusive relationships and they're like, I hate men, but they want to be like, it's like, okay, so let's dig a little bit deeper.
absolutely. So I would ask them, okay, what do they hate about men? Be specific as possible. So list me 5 things that you don't like about men, or list 5 things that a man has done to you that you don't like, right? Because it's easier for us to talk about what we don't like. So when
Right.
they give me those 5 things, they can say that, Terraine, I don't want a man that tells me where I can work, how to talk to people, things of that nature. So I give them, okay, so the opposite of those 5 things is what you actually want. So
Mm,
then I asked them the most important question is, has a man in your life, uncle, father, brother, cousin, whomever, has there been a man in your life that has made you feel safe? It doesn't matter who you are on this earth, there's always at least one man. And then I asked them about that one man. Tell me about that man. What are some of his characteristics? You know what, Terraine? He was this way. He was gentle in his tone. He was gentle in his approach.
mm,
Perfect. You see those things that you value that put a smile on your face as you're talking about them? You need to go find that in a man. Well, Terraine, that's impossible. It is not possible. If there's one, there's 1,000. If there's 1,000, there's 10,000. There's always going to be more. Your uncle that was very nice to you, respectfully, he's not special. He's not unique. There's many more of him. So then the second question would be is, what are you doing to be found by these men who are not up to your standard? Train, what do you mean by that? Perfect. I'm glad you asked. Where are you looking for your men? Online dating apps? In the club? Eh. Right? You're a religious person. Yes, I am trying to go to church every Sunday. Okay, what about ministry?
mm,
What about single school? Oh, I can't date anyone there. Why? Because you're not good enough. Because
mm,
you know the standard of the church when it comes to being single, because they date with purpose,
right.
right? So if you can't find a man or woman at church because of the certain standard, or if you're not willing to try, there's work to be done for you, because it's easy for me to go in the puddle of mud and complain that it's dirty. We
Mm,
all can see that it's dirty, right? But if I were to go into the pool that is nicely cleaned, and then when I get into there, I dirty it, I'm the problem,
mm.
right? So that's the second question I ask the women who've been through those situations. What are you doing that's attracting it? It could be that when you got married, you're not realizing subconsciously you're attracting the same type of man. You got to break that cycle. It's like the women who I hear saying that, okay, I only date men of this culture. Why? Well, I find them attractive. Okay, fair enough. Attraction is a beautiful thing. Can they provide for you? Can they make you feel safe? Okay. So you're disregarding all these things because either their cultural background or the color of their skin. So every time it fails, whose fault is that? It's yours,
Mm,
because you don't want to do anything differently, but you're going to complain about it and complain about the men. And they're going to say, what? All men are this way. No, all the men that you meet are this way. All the men that you allow to take you on a date are this way. You see, the men that are like your uncle, the men that are good, for some reason, they're bypassing you. Why is that? And that's the third question I would ask them.
I love those questions. I love because it makes you look introspectively. Now, what kind of advice would you give a woman who has never been in a relationship, but based on things that she's heard? And I think you said this earlier about like what type of people do you hang out with, like you spend time around. So again, like what advice would you give someone who's kind of like, I see this happening. This happened to my aunt. This happened to my mom, my grandma, because a lot of times too, I've heard people say, um, well, I don't want to be in that relationship because, I seen my grandma get beat, but she stayed, and even some people have loosely said that a piece of a man is better than no man at all. But again, what advice would you give someone who has never dated but do have a desire to marry?
Ooh, I love that. I always ask them, what do they want? What kind of relationship do they want? Well, Terraine, like to your point, right? Well, my grandmother got beat. Okay. So you know what you don't want: an abusive relationship, a physically abusive one, I'm guessing, right? Okay. So what kind of relationship do you want? I want to be loved. Perfect. What does love look like to you? I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Exactly. No one knows what love looks like to them.
Right.
Go ask, right? Go walk down the street, ask 100 people, what does love look like to you? They'll tell you, they'll tell you everything that it's not, but they won't be able
Mm-hmm.
to tell you everything that it is.
Right.
So to those who are looking to get into a relationship, that's what I would ask them. What kind of relationship do they want? And then what does love look like to you? Because the relationship has to be built on love. Then it has, but before you get to love, it's the age old behavior or characteristics of that marriage. You have to be able to communicate. If you can't say what's bothering you, what upsets you, your do's and your don'ts, then you're not going to have a relationship. So, to all the women and men out there who want a relationship, first, write down 5 things that you want out of that relationship. 2 are physical, 3 are personality based. So you can say that, Terraine, I want a man that's 6 foot tall. That's perfectly fine. I want a man that looks as good as a young Denzel Washington. Perfectly fine. Whatever it is that you want, it's Baskin Robbins. We have all kinds of flavors here.
Right. Right.
So, right. And then ask yourself, give me 3 personality characteristics you want. Terraine, what do you mean? Okay. How does he make you feel? How does she make you feel? Is he respectful? Is he understanding? What is he internally? Right? Because you have the physical, that's going to fade. You need something that's going to hold you there after the looks go.
Right.
Right? So that's the kind of conversation I'll have with people who are very new, because as you start to date more and more and more, you open yourselves up to potentially more bad experiences. And then eventually you know exactly what you don't want. So
Right.
you just reverse. So it's an easier conversation. I know someone who she's been divorced 3 times. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, okay, you know exactly what you don't want. She's like, of course, Terraine, I've been divorced 3 times. Perfect. So now just whatever it is that you don't want from those 3 that you've learned, just write down the total opposite and then date accordingly. So it's a little bit easier when you've had the experience, but for those who are just new to it, 5 things: 2 physical, 3 not physical, and we go from there.
Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you. I remember back in the day, Oprah had this thing. She said, just take a she said write down 100 things. And I'm like, whoa. And my
100.
100.
Jeez.
And and you gave something that was just very, very simple, a very simple list, but it still causes you to sit down and like really think about it, especially when you think about those personality traits. And that is definitely something that I love to encourage others, especially who are desiring marriage or may have come out of a bad relationship and different things. And sometimes some people just they settle because maybe they feel like they don't deserve more, you know. So do you deal with a lot of people as such who feel like, well, I don't think I really deserve to be with this person or that person?
Yeah, yeah. Some people will say that, and it's very defeating in a sense, because we all deserve to be loved. Every single person deserves to be loved. That doesn't necessarily mean that the love has to come from someone else. It could come from your own self, right? You can love yourself in the way that you've always wanted to be loved, and that will carry you forward until the twilight of your life. But those who honestly believe they're not worthy of any type of love or deserving of any type of love, then they need healing, because there's something that has made them feel that way.
Right.
Because no one settles, right? So to the men and women out there who use those words, because I hear it a lot, especially online, no one settles, right? So the best example I can give is look at celebrities. You ever notice that people who are highly successful, who have fame, who have resources, who have money, they don't ever use these words, settle. In my experiences and in my online observation, it's always the people who don't have money who talk about they don't want to settle, right? So when I hear men saying that, well, I don't want to get married to take my money. What money? You don't have money to take. And when I right, so when you so where are you getting these things? Like millionaires don't say that. Like when's the last time you heard Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Denzel Washington, all these people say that I don't want to settle for someone. There's no settling when you're successful. It's that you date within your your um your ballpark, your pool, right? So if in my 20s I was attracting the same quality of women because I was in a situation where that is all that I can attract. Now that I'm more successful, I attract different types of women. So when I compare the two women, they're different. Why? Because I'm different. So when I hear men and women complain about their settling, I ask them, okay, what have you done to attract someone differently? And the answer is going to be nothing because they think that they're good enough as is already. And they're not, right? One example that I give to the women I coach, sorry, to the men that I speak to, I don't necessarily coach them, but I speak to them, is when you go grocery shopping and there's a product that you want and the store doesn't, and there's a product that you want, right? You say that, okay, Terraine, I want a box of cereal. And the owner of the grocery store tells you, no, this is what you want. And you're like, no, I know exactly what I want. So does the owner fight the customer? Or does the owner say that, hey, there's demand for this? These Fruit Loops, there's demand for it. So let me go get Fruit Loops so I can satisfy my customers. That is dating. If someone is coming to you and they're saying that, hey, I want a man that is successful. And you're like, no, you want a man that's broke. The woman's going to do what? Thank you for your comment and go find a man that's successful.
Right.
They don't have time to fight with you. But it's crazy to think that there's people out there that's going to argue with the customer and say that, no, this is exactly what you want when they're telling you what they want. No. To the women out there who want a man of a certain pedigree, understand what he wants. To the men out there who want a woman of a certain pedigree, understand what she wants. That's why I say no one settles. You either accept what you can get or you make the changes necessary to get better. Those are the only two options.
That's a great explanation as well. I do definitely believe that we attract who we are. But then, as you change, like you said for yourself, you've noticed as you've matured and gotten older, and there's different things going on in your life now, so you're attracting a different type of women. But I think too that's because your mindset changed as well. And I believe that people can actually see, they can, because I believe in energy, right? And the transference thereof. So when we're interacting with other people, I think it's something that's happening in the spiritual realm where it's like I'm becoming attracted to everything that you are possibly insecure about. And it could be vice versa. And it could be a way of, if there's a person who like to prey on weak people, would you say that you can pick up on that when you're coaching individuals?
I can.
Okay.
And you made a really good point when you said energy. There's some people out there whose energy or is not going to match your energy, right? Like your spirits is going to irritate some people's demons, and that's perfectly fine. Not everyone is not for everybody, meaning that
Right.
there's almost 8 billion people on this planet. You don't need 8 billion friends,
Right.
right? Not even a
Right.
million friends, right? You are who you are, and you are going to attract the type of person that you put out there. So, absolutely, I will agree with you that it could be that the vibe you're putting out there, the energy you're putting out there, is a reflection of the type of person that you are at that moment in time.
Mhm. So even in that analogy, what type of advice would it still be, the same type of advice of writing down things, or would you would you say that this person would need to, I don't know, I'm not a relationship coach. So like what would you say when you can actually feel it, you can actually feel the vibrational force or the energy that's coming from this person. What would you say?
Well, if you're hurt, understand what has caused the hurt and the type of
Right.
hurt that you're feeling, right? That's the first step because a lot of us are broken.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was broken, right? I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the man I needed to be to attract the type of woman I wanted. That is a hard conversation to have with yourself. Imagine looking in the mirror and saying that, you know what? I'm not the type of woman that I need to be to get the type of man that I want. I'm not the type of man that I need to be to get the type of woman that I want. I need to make this change, that change, right? I'm
Right.
a big proponent of standing in the mirror and having an honest conversation with yourself. I did that to the point where it almost brought me to tears,
Mm.
right? Because it's tough to tell yourself you're not good enough, be better. That is a difficult conversation. Turn off the cell phone, turn off the TV, and look at yourself and say, am I the type of person that I would want to date? Am I the type of person that I want my son or daughter to date? If you can't say yes and list the reasons why, you are not the type of person that A, should be dating, and two, that should look to be with someone else because you know what's going to happen? You're going to introduce chaos in their lives because your life is still chaotic.
Mm. That's good. That's really good. Great perspective. Would you, how would you encourage someone to, I feel like I'm kind of like asking the same questions, but you're giving great responses, great answers. And I really appreciate that because I really believe that this will help someone out, right? So I know you mentioned like the online dating. Are you in support of the online dating or are you not in support to that? Because somebody might say like, well, what do I find these people at? I believe that I am the person that I believe that I would date myself, like if I were to, pursue a relationship, and I believe that I am ready to date. I'm ready to get into a relationship. My husband, he told me when we were courting, because we met face to face the first time in 2017 of January, and then we were married in January 2018. And he told me when we were courting, because we only courted for a year, he said, I'm a husband, I'm not a boyfriend. So someone who has that mindset of like, I want to be married. But of course you got to get to know the person too. But you're going to continue to get to know this person in a marriage. But like, where can they say like, well, I don't know where to find nobody at? I'm not into the club. I don't feel comfortable doing the online dating. Like, what do you encourage? Like, how do you encourage those individuals who are desiring that relationship and they feel
Perfect.
like they're ready? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So there isn't anything inherently wrong with online dating or dating apps. It goes back to what's your intention. So are you on a dating apps to waste time? Maybe because swiping is very easy, right? The clubs you can meet someone very nice depending on the type of club. Is it a nightclub where people are just in the dark and no one is really engaging each other? I don't know how successful you can be, right?
Right.
But it is tough. So find out the type of person that you want to date. So if I was looking for someone, if I was in a situation and I was looking for someone to date, I know that museums, events, reading books, those are hobbies of mine.
Okay.
So where would I go to interact with women who share those same things? At museums, events, and
That's
book
good.
clubs potentially, right?
Yes.
So that's where I would go find the type of woman I want. So understand what you want. But here's the thing: you need to know what you want today that's going to take you into the future of tomorrow. Meaning that the person you meet now, are you okay with who they are? You going to be okay with who they are 5 years from now? The answer is no, move on,
Mm.
right? Within the first year, do you see yourself living with this person potentially or taking it to the next level, maybe a marriage? If the answer is no, move on. I think men and women waste too much time in the courting process and they draw it out. And this is something that I've shared with because a lot of my friends who are single are black males, right? And I would tell them that in general, I believe that black men spend too much time growing up. I think they mature a lot slower than the other groups of people. And I find that, and I give them the reason why, because if you look at other cultures, let's say if you look at like Asians or South Asians or Indians, Pakistanis, stuff like that, before 30, they have a very specific, strong idea. Whereas let's say here in Canada, maybe in parts of the States from the stats I'm familiar with, we prolong it. We hear people saying that, well, I'm gonna wait until I'm 40. 40 is a new 30, 50 is no. If you haven't been seriously dating before that, what have you done? Right? If you're still dating
Right.
from 30 to 50, that is 20 years on the market. What have you learned? Because I can tell you what you haven't learned. You haven't learned that family is important. You haven't learned that the career build around the person. You haven't found a woman to inspire you. Women are one of the most inspirational creations on this earth. You have a good woman, you have inspiration for the rest of your life. You find a good man, you have safety and security for the rest of your life. If you don't have that, you're lacking because now you're overcompensating. You have to inspire yourself, you have to make yourself feel safe. The longer you live your life only doing things for yourself, the more difficult it's going to be for you to let your guard down and let someone else do something for you because you've surrounded yourself by disappointment. It's not a strength to be an independent woman. It's not a strength to be an independent man. We are social creatures, right? You need to go out there and go find your other half. You need to go find someone that is going to wipe away the tears when maybe you can't. That's going to build you up when you need building up. So, for the people out there who are looking to get back in a situation to find who they want, understand that it's going to take work. It's not easy, but you have the tools available. You can reach out to whomever, but all you need is one more person. We may have two shoulders, but sometimes our burdens are even too great for both shoulders.
I said, drop the mic type of situation, type of answer, like the mic drop. That was beautiful. That was beautiful because it reminded me of my husband. He had a prayer, and in his prayer, he was like saying, listing all these things he desired in a wife, and then to be able to be with that individual, and us being that for each other. Because I was in that same situation where it was like, I'll get into this situationship, I'll abstain like 4 years, no sex, none of that, because I'm like, I'm tired of getting into these situationships that just doesn't last. It's like, and I know that it's not sustainable beyond the bedroom. Like, and I remember just crying out to God one day. I'm like, Lord, I need a husband. Like I just, and within 2 weeks, I seen this message from him. He's saying he want to be my knight in shining armor and all these different things. He's commenting on my post to my single ladies in waiting, and he's like, saying he want to take me out to dinner. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because we were actually Facebook friends probably about 8 years prior to him making his intentions known. So it was never like I didn't think about him in that way, it wasn't like that. It's just, but I think when it's time, it's gonna happen, and you're gonna know it's gonna manifest itself in a way that you didn't even think that it would even happen. So you gave some wonderful points, some wonderful analogies. Now, how can people get in touch with you, whether it's to interview you for their podcast, or if someone's like, "Hey, Terraine, I need some coaching, man. I need some coaching."
Yeah, so if you want to reach out to me, go to my website at www.behindtheshades.ca. All my links are there. And if you say that you came from this podcast, the first session that we have is free of charge, and we can definitely go there. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can reach out to me at behindtheshadesinterviews@gmail.com. But my website has all my social media links, Facebook, YouTube, and to contact me. And let's get everyone in a situation where they can find the love that they definitely want and want to work towards.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that contact information. Is there anything else, any more nuggets? Because you dropped some gems today, but any more nuggets that you would like to give the listening audience?
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, for those listening, you're worthy of love. Love doesn't have an expiry. You can find it at any age. You could be 20, 30, 90 years old. Don't ever feel that you're too old for love. If you want it, love is something that will be a part of your life. But first and foremost, make sure that you love yourself and make yourself worthy of the type of love that you're looking for. Then everything else will work itself out.
Thank you, Terraine. Thank you. Thank you. So, this has been another episode of Redemption and Recovery When Suppressed Wounds Begin to Heal. We had a wonderful, wonderful guest today, Mr. Terraine with Behind the Shades. Definitely check him out. He has said his email address and also his website where you can connect with him. Please connect. And again, if you're listening from this actual podcast show, you can get your first coaching session for free. Definitely check them out if you are looking for love and you're ready to be loved and you're ready to give love. Again, redemption and recovery when suppressed wounds begin to heal. Have a wonderful day.